All right. So, for those that don't know me, although I see a lot of familiar faces, my name is Mike Flynn. I own a company called Ingenious Learning Center. I've got a variety of centers in the South Bay here. I also have a son that's an 11th grader at Willow Glen High School, and I coach track and football at Willow Glen High School as well. So I'm fairly well integrated into the community. Went to Leland, was a teacher at Leland. So I've been with San Jose Unified through thick and thin, and they're making it pretty thin at the moment. But that's a conversation for another day. So let's go ahead and get started here. There'll be some more people that will add periodically, and we'll hear that familiar chime, and we'll go from there. So what we should have from the sign-up sheet, we have 8th graders all the way up through 11th graders. And the question was how in the world I can do a college presentation for that. And it's actually pretty simple. We want to make certain that we establish a target. And when we have a target, we know that this is college, right? This is where we want to get to. We want to get to college. Or at least put ourselves on the position to get to college. Now, it's okay if you don't go to college. Your parents may have a different opinion, but college isn't for everyone. But don't make up your mind in 8th grade. So in 8th grade, you're not deciding, hey, I'm not going to college, because otherwise, you're going to shoot here. And when you get to about 10th grade, you might change your mind. And then all of a sudden, there's really no path to get there. And then you have to deviate into the junior college route, which we'll talk about. Again, nothing wrong with that path, but try not to make decisions that this early stage of your life that is going to dictate what happens later on. And when that occurs, then you've got yourself into a mess. So we want to try and keep every option available, go as far down the path as possible before you have to make a determination that's going to really put a fork in the road. That way of thinking drives my wife nuts, because she says, well, do you want to do this? I would like to wait, right? Because I've been trained, for having done this for 34 years, that we wait to the very last moment before making that decision that dictates what direction. So gentlemen in the group, if you have someone that's a helper that wants that early decision, say, nope, I know I got to wait because Mike said we got to wait. All right. So let's go. So the easiest place to start is to try and figure out what it is that the UCs and the competitive colleges want. Now, it's not that the CSUs are not competitive. Certainly schools like Cal Poly, San Diego State are becoming increasingly competitive. But for the most part, the UCs and the more competitive colleges have occupied that top tier. So now what we need to do is we need to say, okay, well, that's going to be our gold standard. Not everyone is cut out for that standard. I clearly realize that. And you can take a different path at any other point. But if we don't get you set up early on, then that conversation never gets to occur. That's why the schools are always talking about what the UCs want, because they want to make certain, at least the public schools in California, that you have a chance to get there. And you can deviate from that at any point, no issue whatsoever. You'll see that just because you prep for the UCs, it makes you eligible, but it doesn't gain you acceptance. And that's a hard reality that students learn. And I have a bunch of seniors that we just helped get through college applications and essays, and I just got an email today that says, I got into all these schools, I'm still waiting for the UCs. And, there's going to be some bad news coming, right? It happens for everyone. So that's the trick, is that, hey, just because I did everything we were supposed to, there were either more qualified applicants or I just didn't get my number drawn. And I'll show you how that process is flawed in a second. So the very first thing that the UCs want and to determine is something known as course rigor. And so course rigor is this concept of what is the difficulty of the courses I'm taking. Did I take AP courses? Did I take honors courses? And there's a ratio that they look at. And the ratio that they look at is the total number of AP and honors courses that the school offers, and then how many you took. So hypothetically, your school offers 20 AP and honors courses, just as a round number, and you took 5. Well, then your ratio is going to be 1 out of 4. And you can say, oh gosh, that doesn't sound very hard. Well, you be that high school kid that's got to sit through all those APs and honor courses, and you might have a different opinion. On the other hand, there will be kids that have a 1/2, right? Meaning that they took 10 AP and honors courses. And I have students in my that we just went through the application process, 14, 15 AP courses, right? So these kids have been doing it for as long as they can think of. They've been just piling them in. What that does is it gives you an extra grade point boost, right? So that's beneficial for some colleges, but not for all. And in addition to that boost, it also shows, again, that level of rigor. Not all colleges will consider the grade point boost. University of Washington, for example, does not consider your AP grade. It is a 4.0 scale. On an AP grade, it's a 5.0 scale. So everyone freaks out as well. UW compensates for that and applies extra weighting to the rigor as opposed to the GPA. So don't panic when you get to this phase that like, oh, they're not looking at everything. No, they are. They're just looking at it through a different lens. The next option to consider is concept of test scores. So if you're not in the know, that's okay. I'll give you a quick 30-second primer. The UCs and CSUs have made the SAT and ACT go away. They're called test blind right now. And the reason why, that they were making them mandatory, and then they pulled back and made them optional, which means that if you had scores, you could submit them or you didn't have to. And this somehow we're going to be able to tell you, yeah, I'm going to be able to differentiate between kids that had them and kids that didn't. I don't really know how they were going to go about doing that, but they said they were going to. We're now in a process where there was a court case and the UCs lost and said, listen, if you can't ensure that every child in California or around the country has access to an SAT or ACT, then you can't require them. You can't even make them optional because we're worried that that somehow is going to affect them. So out of the 2,500 four-year universities in the U.S., there's still 1,200 that are going to be test optional or required going forward. So what I tell students is that, because I have a lot of people go, oh, I don't need to take the SAT because the UCs are not going to require that. There's only 10 UC campuses and only 9 that you can get into as an undergraduate. And there's 23 CSU campuses, and several, honestly, I would never recommend you ever going. But there are another 2,400 great schools all around the country that you can explore. So put yourself in a situation to say, maybe an out-of-state school or a private school. And then one conversation that always pops into people's head is, well, Mike, I don't have that kind of money. Well, I don't have that kind of money either. I'm sending my son to school in Indiana at Purdue, and he's studying engineering there. It's a great school, and it's expensive out of state. But he's going to get out in 4 years, and at the end of his 3rd year, he should have a job, so he knows when he graduates he'll do that. The same program at UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, was a 5 or 5.5 year program with no guarantee of a job. So it comes down to what's the total cost, right? So when you look at the total cost and the fact that my son, the day after his graduation, he gets a slap on the backside and says, go to work, start earning. He doesn't have that opportunity cost. There's no loss. His friends still have another 18 months before they graduate. So there's a lot of advantages to doing that. The other reason you take an SAT or an ACT score is that there are schools outside of California that will give you money. And if you have a specific test score, a certain GPA, they'll give you a lot of money. University of Arizona, University of Alabama, University of Nevada, Reno, just a couple off the top of my head that I was just working with a student last week on. We're looking at huge dollar amounts by having the decent GPA and good test scores. So again, keep this in your eye, keep this in your your quiver. Like, hey, I should have that option for kids. Next thing is essays. The UCs want essays. That's something we'll worry about later. Recommendations, kids, develop an authentic relationship with your teachers freshman and sophomore year. I know it's hard now. You don't have to go, oh, gee, Mr. Flynn, you're the best teacher ever. Thank you. I'd love to hear it. Don't get me wrong. But it's also the concept that it's okay, I know you're not really being real. But periodically, hey, that was a great lecture. I really learned something today. Wow, thanks, kid. And then a couple weeks later, you give me the exact same thing. Or when we're in class, right? The kids that actually, I would stand in the doorway, and kids that would try and get skinny to go around me, I never had a good, authentic relationship. But when some kid would come up and say, hello, how are you? Oh, all right, this kid's a human being. This kid's got hope. So those recommendations are critical for a lot of colleges. Again, it's an authentic relationship. You don't have to go overboard, but just periodically appreciate them. Say hello, say thank you. When you send an email asking for something, be polite. Hey, hope your day's going good. Whatever, right? Just make it authentic, because you're going to have that teacher later on, right? For some of these courses, if they teach physics, they're going to teach advanced physics or math. Might see a teacher twice. So you might as well develop this good relationship. Next thing is activities. Okay, those kind of went by the wayside this year, but typically if you can be in a sport or an activity, whatever that activity is, do it for as many years as possible. And the reason why, that shows commitment, right? The longer the commitment, the better it is. Schools are looking for what's called well lopsided. We'll talk about that in a second. You have to recognize that the system that you're about to go into is flawed. And the reason it's flawed is because the process is exceptionally confusing. And it's confusing for me. And like I said, I've done this 34 years. I still look and go, I don't know, I got to look that up. Because it seems like every school has a different process. The system rewards students who follow very, very specific rules. And those rules are often unknown unless you either go and research it or you have someone explain it to you. Be very, very careful when you get advice from a friend. I will tell parents when they talk to me, they go, oh, my friend said, and I said, chances are that it's 50% of what your friends tell you is wrong, and the other 50% is really wrong. So be very, very skeptical of when you hear, oh, well, my kid did this. Well, run it by me, and I'll tell you, well, that was good. They did that, but that's not the reason they got into school. They got into school for these other things, and that was a nice feature. The worst part about the whole process is that deserving kids do not always get into colleges they're qualified for. And that's heartbreaking. But it is, unfortunately, the thing that happens time and time again. And it's going to happen in large numbers right now. The CSUs, UCs always had grades, test scores, your course rigor, where you came from high school, and then they were told that they have to wipe away test scores. And now, how do I compare a 4.0 at Ukiah versus a 4.0 at Leland or Bellarmine or Willow Glen, right? It's really, really challenging. So just going to have to recognize that, hey, I'm going to gussy myself up. I'm going to shower, shave, put on hair and makeup, whatever it is, and I'm going to the dance, and I hope someone asks me. And that's the best way to look at the college admissions process, right? Just because you're supposed to get in because you match all the numbers doesn't mean you're going to get in. And that's coming back to that concept of what's eligible versus accepted. Just because I match all the numbers doesn't mean the college is going to let you in, because they may have a lot of other people in the same process. All right, so the solution to a flawed system is start early, develop a plan, and then know the rules. You do those three things, you're going to have a lot less frustration when it comes time to getting into school. So the path to college, right, there's the 2 and the 4 year school. And you probably have heard a lot of people saying, you know what, I'm not going to do online schooling this year. I'm not going to pay all that money to send my kids so that they're just can live in their dorm room, locked up, isolated, but still have to sit in front of a computer screen. And that makes sense. I understand. But the 2-year school, JC, junior college, JUCO, junior college, or community college, those are the 3 terms that are used. Cool kids right now use JUCO. So if you want to look cool, Aaron, that's the way you're gonna bust out. Those are the 2-year schools. That'd be West Valley, De Anza, San Jose City College, Foothill. There are kids that are taking a gap year. When I show you some of the statistics in a second, I think you're going to see that a gap year is not what you want for your child right away. I recommend a gap year after college, graduation, and before graduate school for a year or a job. But if we're looking at 4 to 6 and sometimes 7 years at a CSU to graduate, and you take a gap year, you're now 8 years, you're now 26 when you're graduating from college. It makes more sense to push that gap year towards the backside, or at least save that if you really get stuck, right? When you burn it real early, like, hey, right on, I just went through high school, I deserve that gap year. Maybe you got to do a little bit more for me to work on that. Or the other path is you go straight to a 4-year school. So this is the depressing part. This is where, good news Mike comes out. So I can already start to see some tears forming. If you go to a JC, traditionally, you will get a 22% graduation rate in 3 years. So let that sink in. If you go to a JC, on average, it takes 3 years, 22% of the students will graduate in 3 years. Well, 4 years got to be better. Oh, you're right, it's better. At a JC, 28% of the students graduate in 4 years. So now you have a child that has not gone to a 4-year university and is 22, can serve you wine at a restaurant, serve you a beer at a bar, but has yet to go to a 4-year university. Now, I'm not knocking a 2-year university or a 2-year school. I'm just letting you know those are the perils. On average, it takes 6 years, 60% of the students will get out in 6 years at a 4-year school. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and far too many for this forum, but we can talk about that later. But those are the sobering numbers. The way that you get around those numbers is that you put yourself in a situation where you have higher selectivity in colleges. And the higher the selectivity, the greater your chance of being able to get out earlier. So there's 4 traditional labels for colleges: highly selective, selective, traditional, and open. Now, a highly selective school, they're taking the top 5 or 10%. And their GPA is usually a 3.85 plus. That's unweighted. As I said, you got to remember schools like University of Washington don't weight. So you always have to look at these things unweighted and then hope that you get the boost. And then they want test scores in the top 10%. So we're looking at 1450 SAT, 32, 31 ACT scores. The tier down from that would be selective admissions, and they're looking at top 10 to 20%, GPA of 3.5 plus, and the test scores are top 10 to 20% of the overall scores. You're now, say, 1,300, sometimes at 1,250 to 1,300 on SAT, and 27, 28 on the ACT would be what a selective school would be. I'll make these slides available. I see all the people feverishly taking notes. I'll make these slides available. But if you do have something, just, like I said, write down everything you want and you'll be able to scan it later. All right, traditional acceptances. Majority accepted in the top 50%. This is the top half of the kids. Your GPA is 3.25 plus. And your test scores are 25 to 50%. 50 percentile on the SAT is a 1060, and on the ACT is a 21. Open admissions. You are a high school graduate or a JC transfer. You have a GPA of at least a 2.0, and test scores are often not required, or sometimes they will tell you, which I never understood, you need to take a test, but we don't look at your scores. So those are the 4 tiers. Right, so it's selective, we go through highly selective, selective, traditional, and open. Now, why should I go to a highly selective school? What does that offer me? And I'm not always talking about Stanford, Harvard, Yale. So I recognize, again, not everyone goes to those schools. Not everyone is also it's just a wide range. So don't worry about any of that. We put ourselves in a path, and then the kids will sort themselves out. So what ends up happening is that the more selective the school is, the better the first-year retention rate. And first-year retention rate is almost like a customer satisfaction index, right? 50% of the students that go to a JC don't return. 50% after 1 year. They go to college, they recognize college is not for them, and they leave. At a 4-year school, the national average is 75%. 75% return, and 25% will wash out. So here at a JC school, 1 and 2 is going to not return after the first year, and here 3 and 4 will return, or 1 out of 4 will not. So when I'm looking at these numbers, I'm setting an indicator for myself as 85%. I want to try and find a school that's going to have a first-year retention rate of 85% or better. And the reason why is that if I've done all this work to get my child to school, I want to make certain they stay. I don't want kids bouncing around. Early in my career, my whole metric was I need to get them into Stanford, Harvard, Yale, because I thought that gave me better sales. And I would get kids in there, and then I would see them at Togo's, a year or two later, serving me a sandwich. And I'd go, what happened? They go, well, it's too hard. I didn't fit in. I didn't like it. It was too much pressure, whatever. And after a couple years of grinding kids to get to the best school, I realized I had to get them to the best school for them. And what that did was it's okay, did you graduate from the school that I got you to? Right? That's the only thing that matters to me. It's not where you get in, it's did you graduate from the school? And there's a lot of great things that happen when you go to a school and you graduate from that same school. You meet a lot of friends in the dorm, you have a lot of great experiences, you develop these friendships, you get to know professors, you find a life, you may stay there. If you're bouncing around, it can be challenging. So I've done this long enough to know you can be happy at just about anything, but I've seen more happiness, more fulfillment when those kids graduate from the same school they went to. There are higher graduation rates the more selective you go. That open enrollment, I have a relative that's a football coach, and he works at a school in Idaho. And I think the graduation rate at 6 years is like 22%. It's a sports school. The kids go there just to play sports, D1. So that's right. That's that. If I want my kid to play football, yeah, that's the school I want him to go to. But if I want my kid to go to graduate and go to school, I'm looking for something different. And then the other aspect is that there are lower transfer rates. And again, there's that concept of just retaining, doing everything, picking the right student body, getting kids that are like you, and going. So Malcolm Gladwell, if you're familiar with that, is an author. He wrote a book called David and Goliath, also Outliers. But I've been teaching this one concept for years and years, and it wasn't until I read this book, David and Goliath, that it made sense to me. That he sets up tiers. And he said that the students in the top third, right, end up being happier, more fulfilled, having better jobs than kids in the bottom 10%. Like, okay, that makes sense. I didn't need to read a book for that. And then he went through and discussed the students at Harvard Med, Stanford Med. When they were in this top third, they went off and they did magical things. And the bottom of the class, the bottom 10%, those students really struggled. Those students didn't have the same level of confidence. Those students, it wasn't for them. You take that same student at another medical school, San Jose State doesn't have med, but we'll just say San Jose State Med. And when they're in this top third, their performance was just like the kids from Stanford, Harvard, Yale, right? Because they had this confidence in themselves. They got themselves into situations. They got greater access to professors. They got on research trials, everything. So when you're selecting a school for your child, make certain that you put yourself in a situation that you can go to a school that's in this top third. That's the trick. Find a school that fits, that your child's going to be in this top third. And there's all kinds of data, and got all kinds of free websites I can give you at a later date. But really the issue here is I'm trying to get my child, right? And if I'm working with your kid, I treat them just like they're my own. I'm going to try and make those decisions that says this is the smart thing to do. So this is from a website that I use all the time, and this is Cal Poly Admissions. Don't worry, you're not supposed to be able to read it. I just needed to prove that this said Cal Poly Admissions, right here. Okay, so down in the fine print, way down here, we talk about admissions and price, and we're going to be able to see that the average GPA at Cal Poly is a 3.92. Now that's the average. That doesn't mean every kid's got it. It's just the average. And that the median SAT score was a 610 for verbal and a 645 for math, and the ACT was 28.5. So what happens is students go, oh, yeah, I got a 3.9. Yeah, was it basket weaving, advanced basket weaving? You know, PE, those don't count. We need honors and AP courses here to make this work. And then kids will go, yeah, I got those scores. Good, that's a great start, but you need these scores. You need the 75th percentile scores. And that would be 660 and 700 or a 31. Now, will they let you in with less? Sure, it happens all the time. But in my profession of college planning, I have greater certainty of getting you into the place that you want when you match or exceed that GPA and you match or exceed that 75th percentile. Now, the other reason that's critical, because that fits in with that Malcolm Gladwell concept of being in the top third. So just because I got into Cal Poly, but I had 590 and 560, you might have some long days, might have some long nights, might have some long years. But if you're up here at the 660 and 700, yeah, you can compete. Now, test scores, I know they don't mean everything, and it doesn't mean that kids can't grow into it. But I believe in a concept that I've been teaching for years called good, better, best. We go to a good high school, we go to a better college, and then we get the best grades possible so that we either get a great job or we go to grad school. And when you have that progression, you're much more desirable to colleges and to professions, right? To employers. So good, better, best. You keep that concept in mind, it's going to help you shape everything else. Because when we look at a kid's performance, right? That's the way the kids are. They're up and down, up and down. And the way I like to look at it is, hey, let's span this out over the course of a lot of years. They started here, and each time we reached a new plateau, we were higher. That's a very healthy way to look at college admissions, in my opinion. Clean this up, excuse me. Okay, so that's Cal Poly. So these are, again, 392 GPA, and 75th percentile is going to be 660 and 700. Now, here's the interesting part. Let's take a look at the student retention rate. So 95%. So 95% of the kids come back after the first year. Yeah, they did great. Right, Cal Poly got the right, they were selective, they did all the right things, they figured out who the group of kids I want to be able to make certain they come back. And that's fantastic. You can't see, and I apologize, I didn't do this correctly, but this is 4, 5, and 6 year, and those are the graduation rates. So the 4-year graduation rate at Cal Poly is 45.4%. The 5-year graduation rate is 74.9%, and the 6-year graduation rate is 79.1%. So 5 and 6 are relatively close. You could probably get out in 5.5 years comfortably, but the 4%'s scary. right? Cal Poly is a really well-respected school in the CSU program, and that's a low number. Transfer out rate here of 2.7, very low, right? So again, kids are happy. They love it there. They love it there so much, they're not going to class, or there is what's more common with the CSUs is there's a backlog and kids can't get all the classes they need, particularly sequence classes. So if I can't get English 1A, which is a prerequisite for history or some other classes, then I've got to wait a quarter, which then I'm taking music appreciation and art appreciation. Great classes, a lot of fun, but not really advancing my path to my degree. And that's what ends up happening is those sequence classes, there's a delay or a gap, and it's affecting students, and that's why the graduation rates are low. If schools were really serious about making certain that the graduation rates were very high in 4 years, again, not to tout Purdue, but I mean, we did our research. You know, you want a class, you get it, right? And that's what's going to happen when you typically go out of state, compared to some of the state schools here in California. Okay, this is San Jose State admissions. Not knocking San Jose State, but everyone is like, oh, sure, okay, let's see what the local college is, right? All right, so here, the average GPA is 3.4. So we can see the other one was 3.92, so it's significantly lower, but it's not for schlubs. We're not taking, we're not taking 1.9s. You still got to, there were 12,000 students that got denied acceptance to San Jose State last year. So it's not what everyone thinks, and everyone go, oh, it's a safety school. Go to my YouTube channel and look at the video called Stop Calling Them Safety Schools, because there's no such thing as a safety school, because that might be the school you go to, right? And I've often said this, that my wife's first pick for a husband was Brad Pitt, and I was her safety husband. So that's just not the way we want to go into the relationship. Aaron, I do look a little like Brad, though. No? Yes? No, not that much. Okay. All right. Well, keep trying. All right. So now the SAT score, the median is 505 and 530, and they were higher, right? They were 560, 540, I think, for Cal Poly, 22 for the ACT. And the 75th percentile, 560, 590, 25 for ACT. So yes, there's an increase, but it wasn't, Cal Poly was crazy, right, at 660 and 700. So huge increase there. Now let's take a look at some real fun facts. Retention rate at San Jose State is 87%. So that's pretty good. It's above my threshold, so I'm happy with that. The transfer out rate is a touch high at almost 5%. I don't know where these people are going. But here's the killer. 4-year graduation rate is 10%. The 5-year graduation rate is 41%, and the 6-year graduation rate for the first time last year, which is what this number represents, in, I would say, at least between 5 and 7 years, this number is now above 50%. So you have a slightly better than 50-50 chance of sending your child to San Jose State and them getting out in 6 years. There are similar odds on roulette, just pitching all $100,000 on black or white, right? You got about the same, because the longer the child's going to go to school, the more unlikely they are to finish. That's like that. That's just human nature for anything. So we want to try and find schools that are going to do that, and that selectivity is a big deal. So what do we do for selectivity? We have to understand what the requirements are and how to meet these and exceed them. So they're the A to G requirements. This is for graduation and what UCs want. For history, they want 3 years for UCs and they want 2 years for a CSU. For English, it's 4 years straight across. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. You got to do that each year. For math, it's 3 and 3, but I will tell you it's not really 3 and 3. Particularly this number here for the UCs, it should be, say, 5. And you go, well, wait a second. How do I get 5 years of math when there's only 4 years of high school? Well, you got to boost yourself, and you got to be taking high school level courses in 7th and 8th grade so that you can get into the more challenging courses when you get to high school. That's the way that game is played. Now, back to the UCs. Yes, you can get into UCs without that, but if you want the most competitive UCs, you have to play the most competitive game. Science, 3 and 2. Just because it says 2 years for CSU, you're most likely not getting to Cal Poly or San Diego State with only 2 years. Foreign languages, 2 and 2. That's required. Again, there's that concept of accepted versus, eligible versus accepted. And for foreign language, I would definitely say 3. If you can hack a 4th year, that's great. A lot of kids can't. That's pretty specialized on that one. And then VPA is visual performing arts. And what I tell all my students, I'll talk about this in a second, try and get those out of the way with early. I have seen so many seniors ruin their path for some of these courses, right? Trying to take an extra math or an extra science course, but they couldn't because they postponed their VPA. So get that visual performing out early, get it over with. Your life will be easier. Some people will say, well, wait a second, maybe I take a VPA my junior year when junior year is the hardest. Yes, that's a very good option for you to soften that blow. But again, now you're pushing a class onto a kid in their freshman or sophomore year that maybe they're not mature enough for. So there's a lot of different calculations that need to go on here. All right, and then the elective, whatever elective you pick, I want to have fun. Yeah, I want you to have fun too, but find something that's worthwhile, right? Whatever it is, find a class that's worthwhile that's going to be marketable eventually in your future. Something with computers, something with graphic arts, the amount of money I got to pay people just to clean up photos for me to put on my website, right? Whereas when my son can do it in less than 5 minutes, but it's $100 every time I want my designer to do it, right? That's a marketable skill for these kids. You learn some stuff now, they could earn extra money or get a part-time job working for someone. So again, these electives, they're good, they're fun, but if you can, pick something worthwhile. Okay, so let's talk about the history path. So in senior year, really the issue is you do AP or regular. So regular history always has to be government and econ. And, you can wonder if there should have taught more government, right? So maybe help some people learn some things. But traditionally, if you're taking AP, I would recommend AP Econ and then regular government is the way that I would do that. And the reason why I recommend that is that you can transfer this AP class more consistently to eat up a class in college. So I have kids that go into college as sophomores, second semester sophomores, because they use the right AP courses to eat up general education courses when they got there. Now, the other way to do that, there is an AP Gov and then regular econ. But there's really no government class in college unless you take a specialized major. So that one's not as effective, in my opinion. The other thing, too, is the difference between, say, AP Gov and regular Gov. We're all going to learn the Bill of Rights, but on this, you're going to learn the context and what they were brought up with. So there's a lot of background reading. And now that can't be fascinating, but maybe for a senior in high school, that one's not so good. When we get to 11th grade, we have what's called APUSH, or regular history. Now, APUSH is AP US History, and then just regular history. APUSH is a fantastic course. A lot of reading and writing. If you're not a good critical reader and you're not a good critical writer, that course will either make you one or break you. It's really the only two options that you have there. So there are a lot of students that I know will shy away from this one because they're afraid of the writing. However, that class does probably just as much to prep you for college for your writing ability than anything else in high school. So I'm always a big fan of APUSH, but if you're not a good reader, stay away from that one. If you are a reader, that's good. In 10th grade, now, we have traditionally AP World versus regular. So you can see, if I were to take, I've got 3 APs here wrapped up if I start this path early enough. So some people will say, hey, I'm going to take regular history in 10th grade, and then I'm going to jump to APUSH in junior year. That's a sizable gap, and that's not one I recommend. You kind of have to get on this train when it's leaving the station in 10th grade, and then you can derail at any point you want. But if you start off track, it's really hard to get over here because you're not going to be used to the volume of work, the quality, the quality required is substantially greater, and I see more kids struggle when they take this and then jump into that. So this is a path where I think you've got to kind of stay consistent. I'm really okay if you don't take, again, APUSH and that AP Econ. That's one where I'm going to say I can let you jump back on. So if you didn't take APUSH and you just took regular, I would still recommend that you could go into AP Econ because there's not that much work. But if you didn't take AP World, I would not recommend jumping into APUSH. That's just too much, I think. Does anyone have any questions on the A requirement for history? Now would be the best time. I hear someone unmuting. No?
All right, Mike, I'll ask a question.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
No problem. AP Econ, and then you said regular government. So that's a selection where it's what switches halfway through the year, or it goes from AP Econ to regular gov. Or?
Yeah. So the traditional. So very good question. The traditional path is that they do AP Econ first semester, and then they continue that because they want to do more, and they squeeze the government in because it's a state requirement. It's required that they have to take government in senior year, just like in 9th grade you've got to take health, right? There are these state requirements that you've got to check off the box, and they recognize that hey, the big ticket item here is in the AP course, so we're going to run that first so we can have more time with it, and then we're just going to squeeze in that second portion. But it is technically semesters, but it doesn't always work out that way. Did that make sense?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, are you taking, I have a 10th grade question, but I don't want to field it if you're focused on 12th grade.
No, if anything in the history path, you're good.
Okay, it is in the history path. So,
Sure.
How do we assess with our student if they should go into AP World or regular, right? Good student has a 4.0 in the first semester in 9th grade, took honors, honors bio, but that's the only honors class he's in. So how do I assess that with him?
It's a reading course, and there's the note taking, right, Bryce? You took that with Casey. There's a lot of note taking going on there, and it's just one of those things that I think it's fantastic because it does set you up so well for the future. But maybe look at some STAR test results and the standardized testing that the school gave. Those are even a little soft though, because all that does is just determine competitiveness for a grade level. It's easy. I can hook you up with I don't charge anything. I give you a test, right? In 40 minutes, we're going to know what type of reader your child is, and we can go from there. But if it's a good student, AP World is a softer AP. That's why they put it there, right? Brit Lit, AP European History, nasty. AP Literature, when we get to English, can be nasty. So if you put that as a sophomore, they would be in tears every night. So this one is one where they recognize, hey, this is kind of the first foray into AP, and so the teachers are going to bring the kids up. So I'm really comfortable. If you have a good student that wants more, I think that's a good course for them.
Okay, Gateway AP course though.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. I've never used that, but I will steal that and pretend it was my own. So thank you.
Great. All right, no worries. Thank you.
Any other questions on history?
I guess, Mike, one last question on the AP. So if you have a senior that's got 4 AP courses planned already, and then they're looking at this class, is it worth taking the AP or not?
It really depends on what the other AP courses are, and I was gonna talk about this later, but if the UCs and the CSUs and a lot of other colleges are going test optional or no test whatsoever, now we're looking at course rigor, right? And that course rigor is difficulty plus GPA. So if we're in this process, it now makes sense to take more softer AP tests, or excuse me, AP classes, don't worry about the test, that's different. But it's now better based on the current condition of where SAT and ACT are kind of up in the air and schools may or may not accept it. It is in a student's best interest to take additional AP courses and focus more on that, even if they're a little softer. So AP Econ, again, is not going to be a hardcore one. Of course, there's the expression, the straw that broke the camel's back. You can carry a tremendous amount and you just put that one last little bit, and it wasn't just that last, it just collapses everything. So there is this such thing as one too many AP classes. It doesn't just affect Econ, it draws everything down. Really will kill everything. So you have to be very careful. So maybe what we should do, Matt, is later we can talk with Colin and Greta, and we can all figure out what's a good balance, right? You also got to factor in, hey, I got sports, I have a life, there's a number of things going on here. What's too much? So, yeah, excellent question. And I'm not advocating more, right? That's the path to get to the promised land, but there's a lot of other really great promised lands, and particularly if we believe in that good, better, best concept. So, okay? So we'll finish that one up later for you. Any other questions on history? Bryce, we're good? This wasn't one of your questions? Okay. So while I set myself up for the next slide, let's go back to that course load difficulty and the soft APs. So if your school offers something like AP Psychology, I've never once tutored a student for an AP Psychology ever. The only student I've ever tutored in AP Econ was just because the kid refused to do his or her work. Government, every time we've taught an AP Gov kid, it was because the kid waited till the last minute to do any work, and we're performing life-saving miracles on their grades in order to get them through. When you talk about AP Physics, AP Calculus, AP Bio, AP Chem, those are the hard ones. So they're great, and they're going to look great for college, and they're going to do an awful lot for you. But if you're looking just to, I don't ever teach gaming the system, but the system is kind of ripe to be gamed at the moment, that taking more APs but having kind of the lesser of degree of difficulty, that's going to juice your GPA for these colleges when they look at it. Again, now you want to go, oh, my dream is go to University of Washington. University of Washington is going to say, I see you took AP Psychology and AP Basket Weaving. You should have taken Calculus because that's what we're looking at, right? So that's the difference. Jennifer Ash, you would remember AP Basket Weaving from Don Bell. That's where I got that. Okay, English path. It's 4 years. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. All 9th grade is going to be just your basic. There's nothing there. Here we have honors or basic. 11th grade, you have an AP class or I don't want to say basic, that's unfair. Let's call regular. And then senior year, we have AP, this would be lit, or regular, which is CSU writing. So let's clean this up a little bit, and this is going to be AP Lang versus regular. All right, so let's now figure out what this path is. 9th grade, I got nothing, right? I got to take it. For the most part, that's the way it always is. Sometimes some schools will offer an honors, but it's going to be a softer honors. They recognize it's a freshman year. Now, it might be hard for your child, but it's not a hard class. It's just hard because of the expectation, and the kids are coming from middle school where they're uncertain. There's also one other thing in the back of your mind that you always got to consider that says, hey, my kid's shooting the daylights out of school right now. I'm under the belief, right? We see about 1,000 kids a month. So I see I have a lot of data on this. Teachers are doing maybe 75, 80% of the expected work. And, right, it's just the scenario that we're faced with. So I understand why they're doing it. I'm not blaming anyone. But our kids are not getting the same level of difficulty that they would under normal circumstances. And for a class like English, it's going to affect their writing, but it's going to be more challenging when we talk about math. Science is no big deal, right? Because those are independent courses. Foreign languages and math are the real killer. English, there is going to be something when it comes to reading and writing, but that can be repaired. So anyway, so regular or an honors in 9th grade, I always recommend, if your child is a decent reader, I recommend boosting them to get them into the path. If in 9th grade they only took regular, then your very first experience is going to be an honors English class in 10th grade, and that's going to usually involve a lot of grammar and writing, and it can be very challenging, but it is exceptionally beneficial. AP Lang in 11th grade is what I would deem a soft AP course. Thank you, Bryce, for agreeing with me. It is a very, very soft AP course. But AP Lit in 12th grade completely reverses that trend and can be really nasty dependent upon your teacher. The challenge that I don't understand why schools don't do is, why don't we shrink the difference between there? Right? So in math, we see that there's this horrible, horrible thing from geometry to algebra 2. That's a full step level of difficulty increase. Whereas they should make geometry a little bit harder and maybe algebra 2 a little bit easier, so there's more of a gentle step. But when you have these gigantic steps, it's so difficult for the kids. And so this is what happens is kids go through AP Lang, and I hear my son in AP Lang playing on the computer, right? He's doing whatever. And aren't you in class? He goes, oh yeah, I finished it. What do you mean you finished it? You still got 35 minutes left. And no, I finished it in 15, and I just was being polite and I hung on there. And then all of a sudden my friends were playing, so we all did. Sound about right, Bryce? Yeah. So my kid's in for a world of hurt when he goes into AP Lit next year, because that's going to really hurt him. Now, it's a fantastic class. It's setting kids up for success in college. But the difference is so great when we go from AP Lang to AP Lit. Let's talk about regular senior year English, CSU, expository writing. Now, I don't know what it's like at Leland or Lincoln or some of these other schools, but I know what it's like at Willow Glen. The very first day of class, we talk about what a noun is. And the second day of class, we talk about what an adjective is. And the third day, we talk about what an adverb is. And we go through 90-minute periods discussing what each one of these things are. Now, honestly, that should be, hey, kids, remember what a noun is? Okay, good. Remember what an adverb? Okay, good. Right? Okay, maybe an adverb, I'll spend 5 minutes because those will be a little bit more challenging. I don't need an hour or 90 minutes on those other ones. But that's what CSU expository writing is. My older son said, listen, Dad, I've taken all these hard classes. I want to take this one. I go, don't do it. Of course, he knew better. He texted me within the first 20 or 30 minutes of class, says, I want out. But the schedule had already been set. There was nothing he can do. It was a miserable experience for him, a complete waste of a class the entire time. Now, if you have a child that's not good with English, then yeah, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't get some help, because that kid's going to go to college and it's not going to be like this, it's going to be like that. Right? I was an English teacher. The only bad grade I ever got in English, in a humanities class in college, was in English 1A. And it's because I just took regular English and I was not ready for the rigors of college English when I got there, and I got hammered. So again, it's kind of setting yourself up for these stepping stones. But if you don't take AP Lang, there's no way in the world you're going to be ready for AP Lit. So you just got to take the CSU. So again, there's all these choices you got to make, but I want you to know of them before you go in to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be really disappointed. Let's go through. Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions on the English side?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Aren't they really teaching to the AP test? So when you're saying, shouldn't they make this a little bit easier and this a little harder? Isn't that dependent on AP test? Or sorry, I'm a freshman here, so
No, you're in theory, you're right. I saw a graph the other day that says this is theory and that's application. Right?
Okay.
So
They're not really teaching to the test.
Some teachers do, some teachers don't. And I just, like I said, I've done this enough to know that AP curriculum for Lang and Lit is just drastic enough where I don't understand why there's that significant gap.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about math. First thing to recognize is that college admissions started in 5th grade. I will repeat myself. College admissions for math started in 5th grade. And the reason why is that the UCs, just speaking about the UCs in general, the UCs want calculus in 12th grade. That's pre-calc in 11th grade. That's algebra 2 in 10th grade. Geometry in 9th grade. Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Pre-algebra there, and then in math 6 you got to be a rock star, because if you're not the rock star in math 6, you're not going to get into pre-algebra, and this whole chart shifts down. If you're my sons, poor kids, I shifted that down, and in their senior year they have to take Calc BC. I recognize that's not for everyone, so right, but I'm not gonna. I got the means to keep getting them all the tutoring they need, so I'm gonna keep pushing. But it's this path, right? Except in 12th grade, it'll be a BC. Not everyone, myself included, because I was an English teacher. So this is where my kids love to say, well, "Wait a second, Dad, you never went past trigonometry. How in the world can you force me to take these harder classes?" It's because do as I say, not as I do. But we want to make certain that we recognize that this is the path, and you want to push as hard as you can, but you're going to know when you push too hard, and then you're going to want to derail. And one of the classes that you can take is AP Stats. So everyone goes, I'm not taking Calc, I'm going to jump into Stats, because Stats is easier. Maybe. Stats is different. Stats can derail a lot of kids if you're not careful. But if we go back to that gaming the system in the next couple of years, right? So maybe you don't take BC, maybe you jump into AP Stats and you get an A instead of maybe this was a B, and you're kind of juicing your GPA aspect up a little bit so that you can, get more, right? Have more looks, have a higher GPA. A big question that people will have is, do I take the accelerated or the honors algebra 2? And the reason that you would do that is that this would have trigonometry. So algebra 2, accelerated or honors, however your school calls it, involves trig, which makes the path into pre-calc easier, which makes the path into calculus easier. But what occurs is that Algebra 2 is 12 chapters, 6 chapters semester 1, 6 chapters semester 2. But now all of a sudden, if I got to throw in 3 chapters of trig, I got to condense 12 chapters from August until March. And then I got to throw in my 3 chapters of trig from March through June. So that's why it's called accelerated, because we move at a much faster pace. So anyway, if you don't take an honors Algebra 2, don't try and jump into a pre-calc honors. And the reason why is that you're not going to have that trig, and it's going to be very challenging. You're going to have a big gap in your knowledge base. And then I would stay away from calculus, and I would divert into AP Stats. AP Stats, there's a tremendous amount of writing, right? We're talking about the way things have to be written down. There's a tremendous amount of precision. You got a kid that can't spell and it has a messy room, AP Stats may not be the best one for him. That's my unofficial 30-year look at the way kids do math and everything. I've seen that correlation. So I recognize that that's a lot there, but again, we start kind of at the bottom and we're going to go up, and this is the point where we're going to have this launch pad. Do I want to go into the honors or accelerated section, which puts me into honors here? And at San Jose Unified Schools, all of the calculus, whether it's AB or BC, are AP courses. Bellarmine, they do offer regular calculus, no AP. We'll talk about what the value of AP is later on. Any questions on math?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm a math teacher, so my kids are really accelerated. So not really, there's a couple classes. If they take Calculus BC in 11th grade, and then they take stats, or would it be better to take like an AP physics or AP chemistry and not have a 4th year of math? Would that count against them? Okay.
Yeah, my son was in the same situation, my older son, right? He just was a math nerd, and he took BC, and then he ran out of classes, and so stats, and then AP physics, and all of that. Schools are looking, when we were going to college, we wanted to be these well-rounded students, right? And so we had history and English and science and math. And now the competitive colleges don't care about well-rounded children. They care about well-lopsided children. Because they've learned that a well-lopsided child, science and math, science and math, science and math, creates a well-rounded student body. So this concept that if you're looking for just getting to the best college possible, then make your child lopsided. Heavy math, heavy science, heavy foreign language, whatever it is that you're going to geek out on, go for it. And that well-rounded concept works at maybe the smaller liberal arts college, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for super duper competitive, right, then be well lopsided. Okay?
So Mike, if we're doing Algebra 1 in 9th grade, should we be looking at summer school for geometry?
Depends on how good you are, not you, but how good the child is. So if you have a child that's getting 100% in Algebra 1 and there is no challenge, geometry is the one class that I say that we jump. I never recommend jumping Algebra 1, never recommend jumping any of the other maths. But geometry is kind of this lost soul. Harker schools teach Algebra 1, Algebra 2, then geometry and trig, right? Which makes a lot of sense the way that they do it. So there's no reason that geometry has to occupy that spot. But it does. So, and maybe, you can say, hey, this gives kids an extra year of maturity for problem solving. There's a lot of reasons why they're a gap, but it's been proven at other schools to not do that. So only if you're looking for the most competitive, but it is better to terminate at Calculus AB with an A than to terminate at BC with all Bs. Right? Because that's just, it was too much. So there's that balance, the good, better, best. Right? We want to get the best grades possible and the most difficult things that we can to put ourselves in a good situation to go forward. But if you stretch too far, I'm going to make more money as a tutor, but you're going to be unhappy with my advice because I told you wrong. So that wasn't a yes or a no. Those are just the facts. Okay?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on math?
Mr. Flynn, so if I'm taking honors pre-calculus in 10th grade, the honors teacher said that if you do well, you can jump to calculus BC.
No.
Is that something you recommend or no?
No. You're right. You can. There's no problem with that. But then you got no other, you're stuck with stats. So my recommendation is to stick a toe in the water. Calculus might be all that you can handle, Juan Carlos. It might be just the sort of thing like, oh my God, this was so much harder than I thought. And you go ahead, you jump past this and you go right into BC. Now, if you are that super duper math nerd, go ahead. But the other way to do it is to say, you know what, I'm going to get an A there, and then I'm going to get an A there, and I'm going to set myself up, and then maybe I can take AP Physics my senior year. So I don't want to, again, just like with all these things, right? They're all case by case specific, and Juan Carlos, I'll take a look at your other courses and your other grades, and we can talk about what the best way to go about that is. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. The science path. So the 9th grade, right? We're normally taking a bio of some sorts. Oops. So if you're wondering, this is kind of like a weatherman setup. I actually don't have any of these things on the screen. I got to cheat at a monitor to see where I'm going. So if I'm off a little, I apologize. So usually 9th grade, we're at a bio, and at 10th grade, traditionally, it's chemistry, and then there's an honors option. In 11th grade, we have then, you got all kinds of choices. There's AP Bio, AP Chem, Physics, Physics Honors, or AP Physics. Those are generally the courses that are most frequently given. I don't recommend AP Physics at this year unless you've already had calculus. The AP Physics teachers will tell you, I'll teach you the math that you need to know. But I think that there's a maturity that comes with taking a calculus course that sets you up for a better level of success to then take AP Physics your senior year. So again, I'm all about trying to make you successful instead of just hammer away. If you loved chem, and you really love chem, and let me repeat that, you really love chem, then go ahead and take AP Chem. But that's a small class. Not a lot of kids take AP Chem generally. Most of the kids jump over because they didn't like chem, they hated it, so they jump over to AP Bio or Physics Honors. Physics or Physics Honors is generally going to be more theoretical and not as math-based. So if you have a child that's not really great with math, right, and I'm an English teacher for a reason, Physics Honors would have been a good course for me because theoretically I could understand the way things work, but I didn't have the math language to work it out. If you have someone that just looks and sees math in their head, then you can go Physics Honors, right? You can do more things. AP Bio is an information management course. 1,000-page textbook, lots of labs, lots of work, lots of reading. If you're not a good reader, again, APUSH, AP Bio, going to be hard courses for you. However, a course like AP Bio sets you up for tremendous success in college. And you say, but I didn't do very well in bio. Bio in 9th grade and AP Bio in 9th or 10th grade, 11th or 12th grade, pardon me. They're completely two different courses. They don't bear any resemblance. So by 12th grade, we can still take AP Bio or AP Chem or AP Physics. Oops, forgot a P. There's also courses that'll be like engineering or human body systems, physiology, things like that. Those courses are generally going to be a little softer. So it comes down to really, this is the gateway. Much like we had the gateway earlier for AP World, the gateway one, this is the gateway to science. If you do well in Chem Honors, you can handle the difficulty, you can do the labs, you can read, you can do the volume of work, then AP Bio or AP Chem, if you really, really liked Chem, right? That's a possibility. If you didn't do well there, then maybe Physics or Physics Honors is going to be a better course for you. If you, 11th grade year, you don't take an AP Science class, don't try and jump into AP Physics. Don't try and jump into AP Chem. Maybe go into AP Bio if you're a good reader and you just got some things worked out. And the reason why is that the gap is just, when you take that year off, the game leaves you by. You just can't catch back up. I stand to make a fortune off of those kids, but that's not the right path, right? And then what happens is we're looking at dropping one of these courses, and then now you got to do something online during the school year or the summertime, so it's ugly. Any questions on the science path? Yes, Aaron. Unmute yourself, but please. I must say it is nice to just see your mouth move, but not. So there's a little button at the bottom. I'm right here for you, Aaron. What's that? So physiology for 12th grade, medical intervention, although I think that one, I think they want to do in sequence. Regular physics, even Physics Honors. I mean, I think Physics Honors I should have put that one there, sorry. So for 12th grade, we also have Physics Honors. At Willow Glen, the teacher is really good, Banerjee, and I think you could see that there's a bunch of kids that are going to say that's not a hard course, but they did learn some pretty cool things. I think it's pretty important to learn the laws of motion, right? I think that, and that's what that course is really all about in a non-mathematical way. So for Kevin, that's what I would recommend, Physics Honors. And have him ask one of his friends that might be taking it and see what they think.
Mr. Flynn, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm currently in Physics Honors.
Oh, Kevin, you ruined it for me.
I'm sorry. There's like, I think there's it's called like Science and Engineering.
Yeah, Engineering, Science and Tech is what I was going to recommend for you.
Okay, that's a decent class?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of your easier classes. You could do that, or you could do physiology. Those would be the two. Which one are you more interested in? Something that's more, the way the world works or the way the body works? Those are your two choices.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So funny when you haven't seen these kids for a year, and all of a sudden you hear their voices and like, oh my gosh, that's a man. Okay, any other questions on science? We're good? Okay, the next one is foreign language. Really, we can start at any point. This is easy. They get easier as we go through. And we're going to say that the 4th year of foreign language is by far the hardest because the entire course is done in that language, right? French or Spanish, that's all they're talking. You speak English, you're going to lose points. I was not a math nerd, not a science nerd, but I took 4 years of French and 4 years of Spanish because it was really easy for me. I don't know why, I just could do it. And the hardest of the 4 years was actually the second year of the language. And that's because in the second year, we're learning a lot about the English grammar problems that arise. So it's there's 2 verb forms in French, and there's a couple verb forms in Spanish that make it very difficult. The passé composé and the preterite, and we have the subjunctive, and the past perfect in Spanish, and it's more about English grammar than anything else. So if you survived French or Spanish 2, French or Spanish 3 won't be that bad, but then brace yourself for the 4th year. But if you're good with it, then that 4th year is a great class because it shows colleges that commitment. Right? I stuck to it, I did it. If you have a child that struggles in French or Spanish 1 in middle school, have them retake it when they get to high school. Because when they get into 3-4, right, semester 3 and 4, or the second year of it, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I can just tell you that what the middle schools are teaching online is not getting kids ready for the next year. Now, if you're already in 3-4, don't think that you're going to repeat 3-4. That's going to come off looking bad. And so what I would do then is I would I would refresh over summer what you've learned in the second year of language to prepare yourself for the 3rd year. So, the foreign language one is pretty easy. Are there any questions that anyone has on this? Okay, good. That one, like I said, is pretty simple. Okay. Let's go back. Foreign language. So the requirement is only 2 years for both the UC and CSU, but trust me, they want 3, and it's really great if you have 4. But this is the point where you have to, if to take a 4th year of a foreign language, you have to be really committed. And so I often tell students, don't worry about that 4th year. You're going to make it up to me in a history or math or an English class, rather than nail yourself to the wall on a 4th year of a foreign language. So, okay, visual performing arts. As I said, get this done early if you can, because then it sets up a better path for your junior and senior year. My favorite, if you're into music, great. You can take one of those. You're into performing arts, screen, fantastic. But I'm a very big fan of having kids take a multimedia course where they're going to learn Photoshop, they're going to learn Adobe Illustrator. Those are some real bankable skills that they're going to have. And my absolute favorite one would be AP Computer Science. If you take, I think, AP Computer Science not twice, but 2 classes, then they give you credit for the visual performing arts. So double check that one with your vice principal, but that's what I've always been doing with kids. And your age, it's important that you understand the way computers and computer systems work and operate, and that will put you in a better position for the rest of your life. Any questions on the VPA? Okay. And then electives. So again, this is something where you can do something that's interesting, but what I've always found is go for something that's beneficial. And a lot of kids say, oh, I want to take photography. Okay, if you're going to go into yearbook, then that is a nice transition. I think that's smart. But if you just want to take photography at the expense of, say, AP Computer Science, then maybe not. One quick word about AP Computer Science. If you've already got, band or drama for your visual performing arts and you want to take AP Comp Sci as an elective, AP Comp Sci is generally not a challenging course. And there's 2 of them. There is Principles and then AP Computer Science A. There's not a lot of hardcore programming. So I know kids, oh, I don't want to program. And that's not really what they're doing. They're talking about the logic sequence of computers and subroutines. And again, that stuff really translates to a lot of other important areas. If you do take psychology, those are generally pretty easy classes, but I probably wouldn't take psychology and then AP psychology. I would just go right into AP psychology because I don't think it's that challenging of a course. And leadership is always fantastic, but only if you can take it over a number of years. If you just take 1 year of leadership, then there's really no benefit. But you take leadership for 3 or 4 years, it's going to be beneficial. Just so you know, leadership can be a time sink. It'll be a fantastic class, but I've seen kids, not be able to study for tests because they had to do something for the dance, or they had to do something, right? Hopefully we get to go back to those things. But that's the stuff that happens with the way that one works. Okay, those are the A to G requirements. That's all that I have in terms of class selection. Seniors, soon to be seniors, 11th graders. I think there's only like 4 of you guys. Any questions that I can answer specifically for you?
So is there much benefit in taking, say, 5 AP classes in senior year? Like, I know that there's a lot of weight on like junior year. Is senior year same level of importance, you think?
So, right, this is 11th grade, and that's 12th grade. And this is what I see all too often with course selection. Kids do way too much and then not enough. And colleges look at that and say that's out of balance. What happened to that kid? So I think it's going to be better when you're a little more balanced, right? At senior year, I know you're not going to do the same, but you don't want it to be going down at a real steep angle. I didn't even do that enough. I should be a little bit more flat. But you understand what I'm saying, right, Bryce? That you do need to take something. Your question is that you're going to be going back into the pool for water polo, and you got a coach who loves 3+ hour practices and doesn't care about your grades if you have a big test. So you're going to have to make certain that you balance your time appropriately to make that happen. Can you do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know either, right? It's a very challenging thing. But if let's suppose that you take that 5th AP, congratulations, great. It's going to look so fantastic for colleges. But if it's just too much work and you end up with B's and C's, it would have been better to take only 4 APs and 2 regulars or whatever and end up with all A's.
No.
So you never want to give a college a reason to doubt you. Right? And if you put a C on a transcript, that's a question for pause. Okay, but you can work around 1 C. You give them 2 C's, then I go, maybe this kid's not for me. Because it's gotten so competitive. That's the unfortunate aspect. Okay?
Yeah.
Any other 11th grade questions? Okay, my 11th graders, bye-bye. Go do something meaningful with your life. Or parents too. Thank you, Crime Fighter. All right, 10th graders. Do we have any questions for 10th graders? This is current 10th graders going into the ever important 11th grade year. Nothing? Either you're asleep or I answered every single question so perfectly that I've mastered this art. No? Okay, 10th graders, have a good night. Thank you. Bye, Jen. All right, 9th graders going into 10th grade. Do we have any questions? Oh, yes.
So they have to take 2 years of PE, but not if they play a sport. So how, in middle school, he ran track and cross country. How do you even know if they'll make it? How competitive is that to just go run?
Well, the glorious thing about track is it's a non-cut sport. So you're good there. Football is also a non-cut sport because the numbers are dwindling. So they're always trying to look to boost that up. I know that firsthand because I coach football. And I know track is a non-cut sport because I used to coach at Leland and now Willow Glen. And it's a sport where we can just keep adding more kids, right? It's not an issue. Sports where there's a limited amount of space, tennis, badminton, right? Those sports, typically there are cuts. Basketball, there's definitely cuts. Soccer, there's cuts. Wrestling, probably not going to have cuts. They're going to make certain they take everyone. I can't imagine that it's going to be hard-pressed to see if there's wrestling next year, right? It's an indoor sport. There's a lot of close contact. That one, I think, is going to scare a lot of people. But if we go water polo, swimming, those are generally non-cut sports as well. So it really depends upon the sport. And the hard part about 9th and 10th graders, they change their mind like the wind blows. So, yeah, I'm going to go out for this. And then they come out to me and they meet me the first day out at track practice and they go, that guy's a jerk. I don't want to. And they go find a new sport. And then all of a sudden they get cut from that sport. So, right, I typically tell people that in those early years you make certain that you have to take those things just because you have to take them. So, I know it seems like it's a waste, and it often is, but that's the setup that the state requires. 2 years of mandatory PE, and if you have a child that bounces around from sport to sport, and I've seen this happen, I've seen seniors have to take PE because they bounced around from sport to sport, got cut, and then in order to graduate, you got an 18-year-old kid that's got facial hair with all these ninth grade boys, right? It looks pretty. It's pretty amusing. Sad that they got there, but it's pretty amusing to watch. I don't know if that made you feel any better, Stephanie, or made you feel worse, but that's kind of the way I put it.
I guess it's hard. Where I went to school, we had like 8 periods, and here they just have 6. So it's like you have to really choose those periods. And like you should exercise, but then it's like, oh, that's a class. You could take AP Computer Science, or you could take PE.
Right, and I think if you were to ask, it's too bad the seniors left. If you ask any of the seniors how much exercising goes on in PE, they might laugh. Right, there's not a lot of exercise in physical education, so they do a lot of other things. I mean, I've had kids, have to study for PE tests because the teacher said, hey, we're going to learn parts of the system, right? And they had to learn all this, and it was like, okay, that's great that they're doing that, but it is hard when you're trying to get all those different body types and interest levels all going in one direction. So, out at track or swimming, it's easier. Get in the pool, start swimming. But out at PE, hey, we're going to play basketball, and you'll often see kids off to the side. So, teach his or her own. Any other questions?
So, Mike, it sounds like from a 10th grade perspective, it's not out of the world then for a 10th grader to go into AP World for History and AP Comp Sci?
No.
That seems like, and then Chem Honors, and then maybe if he wants to go a little easier in English, if that's not his strongest subject, kind of a thing?
Yes, that is possible, and that's similar to what the path that one of my boys took, along with hundreds of kids that I've consulted. But having been a former English teacher, I will tell you that I would rather see you struggle in a younger English class than struggle in a higher level English class. Because then you at least have that gateway as an option, right? That's that gateway to the humanities, that English honors. It really does set you up for the future. So I think that's an important class. If you have a child that just reading is hard, or they have some sort of difficulty with it, or it's always been a challenge, okay, hey, we stay away from that.
So is a B in honors English better than I'm asking you an impossible question, I'm guessing, better than an A in regular English?
I think I'd much rather have a kid with a B in honors English simply from what they're going to learn, and I'm not going to worry about what it's going to look like to a college. but a B in honors English is going to look like an A to a college, and you're going to, so it's you say, hey, it balances out grade wise, but it's so much more important in your future development for just all the other classes that the kids have to take in junior and senior year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on 9th grade here, or 10th grade? I forgot where we are. Wherever we are. Anyone else have any questions? Even if we're going back to 8th grade.
I have one more question about honors chem.
Sure.
How do you know if your kid, I mean, they really haven't had that much science yet, right? I mean, how do you know if they should take regular chem or honors chem? If they're really not steering toward a STEM career, how do you know?
So it's a great question, and that's actually harder to answer than the last one about English. And the reason being that biology in 9th grade is, I'm going to read a textbook, and the textbooks are going to have bold all the vocabulary terms. All of the key concepts are going to be highlighted. There's going to be specific questions, and then the teachers are essentially grabbing tests that are just doing. So if you just simply follow the format of the biology book, you should have an A or a B. Now all of a sudden we jump up in considerable difficulty to chemistry honors, where we have to do lab reports that are very, very strict. We have to deal with significant figures. We have to do with balancing equations. And it's not that the math is impossible, but there's certainly more challenging issues that are mathematical. But taking chemistry honors does set you up for a lot of good things in the future, even if you don't take AP Bio or AP Chem. So it just, in terms of that stretching and that growth, I understand what you're saying. It's like, hey, I got a kid that's not going to be STEM, but I still think that there's a benefit there to taking that type of course. And I don't always push all the honors courses, right? Some are going to be better or some are going to be worse. But that's one that does make kids work, but there's a real benefit to it. AP Stats is a lot of busy work, and I don't see the benefit, honestly. Just a tremendous amount. All the AP Stats that I've seen, it's all busy work, busy work, busy work. And it's the volume, it's the quantity that kills kids, not the difficulty. But chemistry honors, honors English, AP World, those are those ones that kind of set you up, I think, very nicely for the rest of the high school career. I don't know if that helped or hurt, Jennifer. Sorry.
I have a question. Sorry.
And you can always ask me later, Jennifer, too. I'll help you out. Someone had a question?
I did. Sorry. It's kind of piggyback on what you said. I have a 10th grader at Pioneer. He's in honors pre-cal this year, and he's done with math. He's not a math nerd. He's so ready to be done. He doesn't want to take calculus. So now I'm wondering, since you said AP Stats is a lot of busy work, should he even bother trying to take AP Stats, or just, tap out at 4 years of math? Because he's done Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and now honors pre-cal. How much is it going to affect him if he doesn't do any more math?
So what I always tell my students is that you're going to take a lump someplace. You're going to take pre-calc, and if you do the honors portion, that's going to nail you. But then that sets you up pretty nicely for Calc AB. Mm-hmm. But if you don't take the honors in pre-calc, you don't have anywhere near the difficulty level, and Calculus AB is going to kill you. So I have more students that we tutor in pre-calc than any other math. And I have tutors that say it's the hardest math, just in terms of understanding, because in pre-calculus, they're doing calculus, right? So it's that first foray into calc. Once you're into calculus, hey, I've already done a bunch of calculus. So the bigger question, though, that I would say is you're not done at 4 years of math. Mm-hmm. Because now you have a great big gap in your resume for a college that says, hey, I tapped out at pre-calculus. So
11th and 12th grade would be like completely math free. So, I mean, that's what I'm asking is, he kind of sketched out his schedule as we were listening to you talk, and he put AP stats for senior year. But I'm just wondering, is that going to be beneficial if it's mostly busy work, or should I mean, I don't want to nag him into taking calculus if he really doesn't want to do it, you know?
Yeah, a lot of times friends will talk kids in and out of things, right? I often don't even look at my son's first couple of drafts of their courses that they're going to take because I know they're going to change once they show their friends. And then I give, my papal seal of approval at the very end. But it is, I think that calculus, the other real positive reason to take calculus is that always will cover for a math class in college, right? If he gets a 3 or 4 or 5 on the AP exam, whereas stats, unless you're going into a social science or accounting, sometimes business, that stats AP credit goes for naught.
Okay.
Right, so you got bigger fish to fry. Is, hey, I'm doing this, but it's also making my college career a little bit easier, and it's also putting me into the point where I can do a little bit more in terms of that selectivity for colleges.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that one.
That's okay. That's going to be a fight I guess I get to have with him. So,
Good luck on that one.
thank you.
Sure. Any other questions for any age group?
I have an incoming 9th grader. Oh, sorry.
No problem. You're set. Go ahead.
I have an incoming 9th grader, and so there's no history in 9th grade.
Correct.
So the basic class is the standard class of English, math, science, foreign language, probably, and then PE, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe a VPA.
You don't have, they really limit your choices in 9th grade. They want to keep you on a path, and really math is about the only option that they will generally give you.
For like an honors or
Yeah.
class. Is that the class that has honors?
Yeah.
There's no honors English or anything, right?
Now, I have had some kids take AP Comp Sci 9th grade, but those kids were wired that way. They've been into computers and for years and years and years. And so it makes a lot of sense for them to say, hey, let's go ahead and start that. But see, what I like to do is I like to balance load my APs. If we get a lot done early on, then we're left with nothing but the nasty ones at the end. And that's why you see that, I was showing you that, that seesaw, right, is that everything is in 11th grade and then kids have run out of normal APs and the only thing left are these most challenging ones. So if we can kind of shift some of those softer APs to the backside, then I have maybe a more level approach all the way through. And it's 4 years or 3 years of high school instead of, hey, I do nothing. Oh my God, I'm killing myself. I'm back to doing nothing. Right? And this is kind of what that looks like for kids, is that this is 11th grade and it's all this work and then everything else. And those kids, unfortunately, that's not how you get to the most competitive schools. Now, not everyone's all set for a competitive school, so I'm really good with that. But I would rather see kids have a slow, gradual increase than that big thing, because that's how you get kids to burn out. Yeah. Right? We want them going into college feeling good and being interested in learning and not say, you know what, I need a gap here.
Right. And with the PE requirements, someone said there's 2 years requirement, but then 1 year, you can take 1 year if you do sports, or how does that work?
So I'm every school's got a little bit different requirement. It's 2 years. If you play sports, you generally get out of that. But at Willow Glen, 9th grade, no matter what, you've got to take PE. And then I think sophomore year, you can check out of PE, but you've got to at least play a sport. So I think that 9th grade, you're kind of stuck no matter what. But at some of the other schools and other districts, they may allow to substitute. There's PE is not mandatory that you can substitute sports for that. So that's one of those ones you've got to really check with what each school requirement is, or district. That's really the district that's doing that, I think.
Okay, and then with the language, I think my daughter's going to take Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and then is there honor Spanish their third year, or is it just regular Spanish for
So
three?
third year there is, sometimes there is an honors, but it's usually that you get to that fourth year is when they really crank that up. And that would be that fourth year. But Spanish 1, vocabulary study and learning how to conjugate verbs, right? If it's Spanish, it's estar and ser. If it's French, it's être and all the other things. And kids say, well, I don't know how to conjugate. Well, no, they conjugate in English all the time. They just are used to it. But the very best book that you can possibly buy for French or Spanish is called 501, and it's either French or Spanish verbs. And what it is it's 501 of the most commonly used French or Spanish verbs, and the book opens up, so every page is a new verb, and every single conjugation for everything. So kids go, oh, I'll just use Google. No, trust me, this book is so much better. Because Google's only going to give you the one thing, but this book gives you all. Because now when you're trying to translate, you go, well, that doesn't look like, oh, okay, that's the past tense of that. Okay, cool. Right? And so they go through. So that's a great book for kids to use.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Greta, you have a question?
Yeah, I just synthesizing everything you're saying tonight. You're telling those of us with juniors, don't let your child have an empty period. Help them find something non-demanding, soft, as you put it, to fill 6 classes. Period. Is that correct?
So I use my own experiences often. 1 year in college, I can't remember what it was. I was trying to take 15 units each year, and I was paying for it, so I wanted to get out. But 1 year or one semester, I only decided to take 12. The class got canceled, or I couldn't fit it, or whatever, and that's fine. I got plenty. And then one of those classes got canceled, so I only had 3 classes or 9 units. And I got the worst grades of my life because I didn't have anything to do. I was never in the school mode, right? I went to school twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday for a couple hours. I was done, and then I was just working. And the very best grades I ever got were the 2 last semesters that my senior year, because I wanted to graduate. I took 21 units, 7 classes. I took 19. And that 1 unit class was a James Bond class, which is the hardest class I ever took. It was a weekend film class, nastiest thing ever. But anyway, those were the best grades I ever got because all I was doing was school. So senior year, you're going to have this urge to want to do all these other things, and these kids have been cooped up for a year, so I get it. But stick them in AP psychology or something like that, where he gets credit, but it's not going to be hard. Now, watch when my kid, because I haven't even looked at his, we mapped this out a couple years ago. So, right, I know that he's got only a couple choices, but I'm certain he's going to try and throw 4 classes and see if he can get away with 4 classes in leadership. And I mean, I'll squelch that one, but I'm certain that's coming down later tonight when I go see him. So, but no, I think that if there is this other aspect too, I see kids go home at lunch or right after lunch and they might as well be going to college because they're not in high school. So be on campus, enjoy that experience, get into the high school flow, they missed a year as far as I'm concerned. So right, really live everything. And if he's got to study a little bit extra, a soft course is not going to be the big deal, but he's going to be on campus and he's going to be the big man on campus next year. I would say let him be that way. I'm trying to think about the whole Colin, not just, the school Colin.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So my daughter's currently an 8th grader.
Uh-huh.
And so she's in Spanish 3-4. So next year, would she go into Spanish 1 or 2, or how would that work?
No, she would go into 5-6. And then that's the 3rd year, right? It's the 5th semester, 6th semester. That's how they look at that. And then her sophomore year, she would continue on AP Spanish her sophomore year. Now, my son was furious with me because I would not let either one of them take Spanish in 7th grade. I slowed them down, and the Spanish was the first year in 8th grade. They took 1, 2, 9th grade 3, 4. Junior year took 5, 6. And the reason why is that I didn't want my kids taking AP French or AP Spanish in their sophomore year because I didn't think that they were going to be mature enough to really prepare themselves for that. So that's one thing that you've got to just think about here, is that you're going to have a kid that's going to have a little bit more difficulty prepping for this AP exam and dealing with kind of some of the other sophomore year issues. But I'm also not recommending that they repeat 3, 4 and slow down, because that's not good. You're just going to have to be aware of some of the pitfalls that are coming up. But third year language is what is in store for them next year.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. I always tell people, I think you'd rather know what the boat, if the boat leaks, right? Don't take it out in the ocean, right? Fix it, get these things fixed. So maybe what you would do is over the summer, I can point you in the direction of maybe some online classes or some tutoring to buff up those things that are lacking in 2nd year foreign language because it's online, to put her in a better position for 3rd year.
Yeah, that's kind of, we were just talking about the fact that, she doesn't feel that she's at a 3-4 level right now.
Yeah, math and foreign languages are going to be the real nasty ones next year for every kid. So, be aware of it. Take some advanced steps over summer to fill in gaps, or maybe we have these things called Head Start courses where we teach stuff in advance that they're going to see before the next year. And then that's a great tip off, like, oh, wait a second, I really have a gap. And then we can go back and backfill.
Okay.
Okay? Sure. All right, any final questions? June, you're looking like you're dying to ask one.
I do, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
So my daughter, she's going to take Spanish, because she's at Castellera right now, and they don't offer a language there. So she was planning to take Spanish at Pioneer, where they normally bus the kids before at 0 period. But when distance learning happened, that wasn't an option. So, she could be behind taking Spanish 1 as a freshman, or is that something she should take over the summer?
No. It really doesn't make any difference if she takes a 4th year Spanish as a junior or a senior. The only thing that she might feel is she's going to complain, Mom, I'm the only freshman in, or I'm the oldest kid in there, or what, right? Because there's going to be kids in there. I'm the youngest kid, or whatever, right? There's going to be some awkwardness initially because she's going to feel like there's a mismatch. But there's no issue with that progression. And I actually think that it's better, because then senior year, if she is good, she can take the AP level and be mature enough and also have the difficulty level. So it plays out really well to delay foreign language 1 year.
Okay. And then there is an honors Spanish their 3rd year, or no?
I can't say if every school is different, but some will offer a 3rd year honors course prepping kids for AP. Okay. So the litmus test, the hardest year in foreign language, for in Latin, Romance-based languages, is going to be, that's French, Spanish, or Italian. That's going to be that 2nd year. And if they can do well the 2nd year, then 3rd year should not be a challenge. If they do well 3rd year, then they have the choice to go do AP.
And then for math, is there just regular, should be in geometry next year? Is there just regular geometry? Is there an honors geometry? Or?
At Pioneer, I don't think they have an honors or accelerated geometry. There's really no sense to it because there's nothing to get to, right? We learn the special right triangles and the Pythagorean theorem twice. There's just nothing else in geometry. That's why I was saying Harker adds trig to that, but they do it at the end of Algebra 2. Now geometry really has some meaning. But the way that Sounds Like Unified does it, where they sandwich it in there, there's really no benefit to doing that other than the kid you're with.
Okay. So, but even for the colleges, it wouldn't look better to take an honors geometry versus other?
If there is, but I would say that if math, based on the math this year, they didn't get a lot. And they're also looking at kids from, the other thing too to consider is that we have last March at the end of the year before where a lot of basic fundamental math was also missed as well. So maybe don't push too hard on that one if that's not a real skill.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And just your last question, or your last point about it looks better for college. Yes, the more honors and APs that you can throw on there do look good. However, you've got to read the child and you got to read all the other things that they're dealing with. And if they're playing sports or they're on a travel team or all these things, then maybe that's one that you can lessen the severity by not doing honors on the geometry.
Okay. Because I'm looking at our freshman year, and it seems pretty low academically light. I know there's transition into high school, so that's a big transition.
And that's really the thing is that they want to make certain the three most common times where kids will fail is kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade. And so if you look, kindergarten, the way San Jose Unified does it, it's patty cake, right? It's very simplistic. 6th grade, for the most part, right, we're just getting kids used to multiple teachers and classes. And 9th grade, again, they scale it back. And then it's all, the dam breaks after that. So almost every child has a substandard 9th grade year. Get them involved in a sport, get them involved in an activity, let them get good grades, and let it set up for future good years.
Okay, sounds good. I won't push too hard.
Push, but not too hard. All right, any other questions? No? All right, so if you couldn't tell, I own tutoring businesses and I know a lot about this stuff. So if you do have questions with regards to tutoring or your class schedule, you didn't get everything or you're thinking about it and you have a follow-up question, don't hesitate to email me. It's my business model is that if I give more than I take, then I'll never want. So, right, I'm very much into the community, and I know that, hey, you ask a question today and it's not something, maybe something good will happen down the road for me, whether you use me or you refer someone or, whatever. We see each other in Safeway and you say hello. So whatever the aspect is, I can do an awful lot of things in terms of education for your kids, college planning, test prep, if that thing is still a thing. But other than that, thank you very much for staying on the line. Thank you for listening. And any other questions, don't hesitate to send them to me. Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening.